Welcome to the Better Agent Podcast. If you're a real estate agent that's looking to grow your business, then you're in the right place. Whether you want to go from 5 to 10 transactions a year, or 10 to 50 transactions per year, or more, well, then this show is for you. I'm Josh Lavik, your host for the Better Agent Podcast, and in each episode, we'll bring you the tools, tips, and tricks directly from myself and some of the best leaders within the real estate industry. We have one goal in mind, and that's to boost your production and elevate your real estate game. Let's dive in and start creating a better real estate experience together. Welcome back to the Better Agent Podcast. I'm your host, Josh, with Josh Lavik and Associates, and we're exploring topics about how to get better in your real estate business. So if you're looking to improve your business from where it's at to somewhere higher than that, whether it's 5 transactions going to 10 or 10 to 20 or 20 to 50 or 100, whatever it might be for you, then this show is for you. And we hope you get some value and some nuggets out of our discussion today. So I'm a longtime realtor, team leader, also an investor, and been in the real estate business for about 20 years now. And hopefully I can share some wisdom, but I also am excited to bring on wonderful guests that have wonderful wisdom to share as well. So today I have Mari Slobounov, who I've known for a number of years. Actually, we used to work fairly close together as well at the same brokerage, but does a great business. And so I wanted to have her on the show and just share some insight and nuggets. She's got a great story and a great team as well. So Mari, why don't you kick it off from there and give our listeners a little bit more about your background and kind of what led you to where you're at today?
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me. I'm always happy to do these and kind of train other people. I started in real estate in 2018, which doesn't seem like too long ago, at Keller Williams with Josh. And I joined as a buyer's agent on Lynn Holly's team, kind of got whirlwind experience. I did 25 sales in my first year, then 45 plus year after year there. And last year, now I've taken over as the broker owner of our team. We have a team of 7 here in Madison. Our name is Living in Madison, which we just rebranded this year to that. And our team last year did 48.5 million. And I'm really proud of everyone on the team they've learned and grown so much, which I really value as a leader, because Lynn has taught me very quickly, and now I can give back and do the same for others, which I love doing.
Man, that's such a great story and some great numbers. Holy cow. Like first year in the business, 25 transactions. Like that's not a small amount. I mean, the average, nationwide is 7 to 10 transactions. So I mean, that's pretty significant to be.
And when people ask me, they say, how many years have you been in business? So I was like, well, does it matter how many years or how many sales I've had? Because I promise you, I've had enough experience to someone who's done maybe 15 years plus. So.
Right. Yeah. Right. If you've only done, 10 transactions a year for, 5 years versus what you've already done in a couple years. So you really got streamlined. You bring up an interesting point, because you came in to somebody else's world, somebody else's business, right? I think a lot of agents, starting out, right? Maybe they're in a similar position, right? How do I get started in this business? Should I join a team? Should I not join a team? What is that like? And I don't know, maybe share a little bit more about what that process was like for you and how you decided to jump in the way you did.
Yeah, Matt Heilman was our team leader, who I still love. And I think as any new agent, we have no idea what we're doing. No one gives you any protocol. You just kind of have to start selling. It's like, well, who do I call? What am I supposed to be doing? And I just really wanted to learn. And so I went to every meeting. I went to every training. I took bold really quickly, and Lynn noticed that. And so her buyer's agent at the time was moving to Austin. And so they just asked me if I'd want to join. I'm a yes person. I had no idea what joining a team meant. And I said, sure, I'll do it. At the time, I was working for an accounting firm in DC. And I actually kept that job for 18 months and worked as a buyer's agent for Lynn. It was basically working 2 60-hour jobs for 18 months. And I had 2 kids at the time. I look back and I'm like, how the hell did I do that? But I really just wanted to learn. And I was so excited about getting into real estate. I was so bored in accounting that it just enthralled me to keep learning and learning. And so while I was doing my accounting job, I would sit in the office with Lynn and Molly Babler at the time. And I would just soak up and sponge whatever they were talking about.
Yeah.
And so my advice to a new agent, even if you're not joining a team, is just be in the office, listen to people, watch what they're doing, listen to what they're doing. I think I was able to learn really quickly because I heard all the problems they were having to deal with. I'm like, I'm never doing that, so I was really lucky, and I will forever be so grateful for Lynn Holly because she changed my life, really. That opportunity was once in a lifetime, and just getting to learn from someone like her. I mean, she has such a great reputation for a reason, and I just really admire her. And so I think learning from her was an opportunity. And if you have an opportunity as a new buyer's agent or a new agent, I would do it. You can always quit. And that's what I tell people when I'm recruiting them to mine. I'm like, I'm not asking you to commit to 5 years. I'm asking you to commit to maybe a year. Give me a year and see if it helps change your trajectory. Because what I've learned in real estate is people bounce from brokerage to brokerage. I haven't. I'm a very loyal person. But you don't have to commit to a lifelong thing. But if you can learn a ton in a year, why not do that and get fast tracked into real estate?
Totally. Yeah. It's just hearing you share some of your story, I'm resonating with it as well. I mean, I think when I first started, I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, I had never even owned a home before when I first started in the business. I mean, my self-confidence was very low. I wasn't an accountant, but I was, bartending and waiting tables part-time, but I did that as long as I had to. But I remember
you have to,
right? Yeah. When you first start, right? You're a 1099 independent contractor when you first start, and there's no guaranteed biweekly paycheck in most of the positions on most real estate companies. Obviously we do have some paid employees, but it's a different role, more typically on the admin side of things versus as a sales agent. And if you're out there trying to get new business, like you only get paid at the closing. So, you got to do what you can. And I think the other thing that I recognize is just the work ethic that went into that. Because you said 2 60-hour-a-week jobs. I mean, you busted your butt to be successful.
I busted my butt because I knew it wouldn't take forever.
Yeah.
I just kept telling myself if I hustle for just a little bit. And I think I had to hustle I did that for 18 months. But after I was at Bold, and he said, how to make $1 million. And they were going through this thing. And I was like, I will never be able to make $1 million if I have 2 jobs. I am so spread thin. And I literally wrote my resignation letter right then and there. And so that was really freeing. And then after that, I just said, I need to keep saying yes to every opportunity and learning. And I did that for about 4 years.
Yeah. Well, and learning when you're brand new, I mean, you got to learn, you got to figure it out. And, I was the same way. I think I went to just about every real estate designation course, and I took Bold, and I've taken, many times, I've taken all kinds of stuff, and I still continue to take classes to this day. I mean, I was just at a conference yesterday, actually, over in Detroit. And, the cool thing about real estate is there's always something new to learn. There's always something interesting that you can learn from each other, from other peers, other, teachers, different ways to market your business, grow your business, and just do it better, right? Just get better and better. There's always something to do, always something to learn.
You only grow by learning. You have to keep learning. And Lynn taught me that as well. It's because she would always read books, and she was always advancing on different topics. I have coffee with an agent in our market center once a week for the same thing. It's just to hear what they're experiencing. Learn from other people, learn by doing. And I think, just giving advice to new agents, you have to fail. You will grow so much and you'll learn. But if you're doing and you're in action, you will get production, right? So even though it might feel like you're stumbling through it, your activity will lead to production. So keep doing the activity, whatever that means to you.
Well, I think doing the activity, right? You need to learn both how to do real estate, right? How to do contracts. That's kind of what is the obvious, right? But you're looking at properties. You need to be with clients, right? You need to be talking to and, generating new business to try to find clients, but then also show them properties if you're a buyer's agent or if you're listing property, right? You're going on those appointments, but it's, I think what's important that I'm noticing too, and I've noticed it for myself and agents we bring on board, right? If they're not in that mindset of I'm going to make it happen, right? I'm going to generate this business. I'm going to make these calls. I'm going to do what it needs to take to learn to be a good advocate and advisor for my clients. Like, it's going to be a pretty hard uphill battle for sure.
Yeah, the work ethic is the hardest thing to teach someone. You can't teach someone work ethic. And so I can teach you how to sell real estate. That's no problem. That's the easy part. But the hardest challenge I have is teaching someone what I did or what you did to hustle for some time. I mean, I still hustle. I'm not like letting down from it, but maybe just in a different way now. Right.
Yeah, no worries. So, something else that we'd talked about before that I think is interesting is maybe we could pivot a little bit. And I was thinking about how, you really stepped into another agent's business that was already kind of successful, and they were kind of nearing retirement and wanting to really kind of phase out of their business. Right. So, it's something we don't talk about much in this business, right? How do you retire from real estate? Some agents, they'll work until they're 80 or years old or whatever. But, ideally we want to get to a point where we can sort of phase out and retire. Like, if, I don't know, maybe I'm an agent and I'm doing 10, 20 deals a year, but I do want to maybe ramp up my business, and maybe I approach another more senior agent to possibly take over that business. What does that look like? I mean, what was your experience?
It's called The Golden Handoff. There's a book written on it. So read that book first. It's very thin. The next thing is, Lynn and I have just had a really great relationship, business and personal. We've never cried too much on the personal. So it's really maintained a good professional relationship. And when she approached me to consider this opportunity, I was at a pivotal time for me because I was doing enough business that maybe I'd go on my own at that point. I knew I'd be a little scared to do it. And then she presented the opportunity to go in partnership with her. And that made me really excited too, because the idea of growth. And she told me what she thought my business would look like. This was probably 4 years ago. And we're there. And like, it's crazy to think of that too. I was like, there's no way, Lynn, there's just no way. But I mean, there is a way. The start of it is really, you have to find someone and figure out what their goals are. So most importantly, Lynn's husband had Alzheimer's, and she basically needed to work the way she did to pay for his care. And she knew when he passed that she wouldn't have to work this hard, and she didn't want to. She was getting to retirement age. And so we started the conversation. There was a lot of planning, like 2 years of planning. And I listened to what she said. I heard what she needed. And I was mentioning before the call started that we really just trusted each other. We did have agreements. We met with lawyers. We did everything correctly, but she trusted me and I trusted her that we weren't going to take advantage of each other. And that's why it still works, is because I'm very loyal to her. I'm grateful for her, and I still trust the process of it. But if someone really wanted to get out there and start the conversation, you have to listen just like you would a client. Figure out what's important to them and how you can solve their problem, right? So typically a retiring agent, their biggest fear is that someone wouldn't be able to take over their business, or that someone wouldn't want to work with somebody else. And Josh, as you know, you have a team. I've learned that it's like, people will work with anyone on my team as long as they know they're going to be handled well, right? They know they're going to get an accepted offer. And so same thing with a retiring agent. They're not used to that. So you really have to make them feel comfortable with that process. And maybe it's better that you have a team first, that you can show that you are capable of passing off, a lead. And then it's having a plan, a plan has to be in place.
Man, I love that. So it sounds a lot like kind of lead generating or doing same for like buyers and sellers, right? But
with retiring agents.
It's with a retiring agent. Okay. And it didn't happen immediately. So read the book, The Golden Handoff, and then don't plan on it happening immediately. It'll take maybe a couple years.
Maybe 5 years. Maybe the thing is you start it now, and in 5 years, you're taking over their business.
There you go.
But do that 5 times. You could grow a really big book of business from that.
Totally. That's a good strategy, a good way to grow your business. Absolutely. And I think a lot of times, I wonder if how many agents maybe don't have that conversation just out of fear, or I don't know, maybe they just don't know if they can do it, or maybe think people aren't interested, or I wonder what holds people back. But, maybe I think hopefully this is an encouragement to agents out there that whether you're nearing retirement or maybe you're a little bit younger and looking to ramp up your business, I think there's benefits to both sides, really, because
absolutely.
if you're say a more senior agent, like if you don't pass off your business, it just ends, it just stops. And
yeah. So Lynn will be paid forever, like this is her, not really her retirement, but she's able to continue and she's still a part of it. And it allows her to participate in a way that she wants. She has full control over how much she wants to participate. If she wants to work with a buyer, she can work with a buyer. If she wants to list a house, she can list a house, or she doesn't have to do anything at all. And it's her choice.
Yeah. Well, I think she's earned that certainly over time. And when you're in the business long enough and you've built a solid book of past clients and you get referrals, I mean, that's certainly a good place that, I think most agents want to strive to get to for sure. So, I think that's definitely key. So I don't know, is there anything that comes to mind that you think you and your team, you've been really good at, something that you think is really working for you well? What would be some nuggets? We're going through a sort of a transition period right now, right? The market overall, sales are down in the market. And so it's kind of a tough time still. I mean, we're coming out of COVID, obviously, but certain things, sometimes that's an opportunity, and some things are ramping up and work well. And what do you think has worked well for you?
So we changed our business. We rebranded this year. It took us about a year to go through that process, which was a long time to me. And it all evolved from an account I created 2 years ago on Instagram called Living in Madison. And I didn't really have a plan when I started the page, but I'm a very community oriented person. People always reach out to me, ask like, where should I go to this restaurant? What should I do this weekend? Oh, you always know what's happening. And I was like, well, why don't I just make a page about it and people can go there instead of me having to tell people all the time. And so I started Living in Madison, and social media was just a big game changer for me and my team, not just for leads, but for connection to people. Yeah. And it's not a real estate page. It's a community page. I drop a little bit of real estate here and there, and that's how I get leads from the page. But really, it's about my community information, school events, local news, and just talking about Madison in general. Yeah. And it builds trust in a different way with people.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a pretty cool way to go about it. I mean, I think at the end of the day, as a good agent, one of the things I've done for years is just even reached out to my personal sphere of influence. And like, we're not always maybe calling about real estate, but we're just calling to connect them or help them in some way, shape, or fashion of, what's going on in their life that we can, give back. And whether, I remember years ago, I used to blog and write articles for, back before blogging was cool. Right. And, but I would
people
do a lot
still blogging, I think.
People still blog. I know. I think it's a great tool, and we still do a lot of it too. And I think it's helpful, right? Because it's exactly that. It's maybe not directly related to buying or selling, but if we can provide some kind of value of restaurants or recommendations or things going on in the community, I think it does give back. And if and when people are looking to then make a move, hopefully they think of you and think of me or whoever that might be in their sphere and in their networks.
Yeah. I think as realtors, we're connectors. And if you're not, maybe this isn't the business for you, because that's really what real estate is about. We're connecting buyers and sellers. We're connecting opportunities. We're connecting community. And so it's more than just selling a house or buying a house. I love people. And that's why when I changed and decided to totally switch careers, I was so passionate about it because I love people so much. I was a buyer's agent for so long because it was a perfect role for me. I just got to talk to people all day. And so then with social media, it's the same thing. You're just connecting with people. And I use my social media account like I do an open house. Okay. So instead of just posting things, I will send a DM. I'll build rapport just like I would an open house. So I pretend, hey, they're walking in the front door and I'm going to try to build connection. So that might be, looking at their page and saying, oh, it looks like you went to Hawaii recently. I love Hawaii, whatever it is. Just like you would an open house. Like if you can't find anything to talk to someone about, tell them that they have nice shoes, and they'll laugh and whatnot. So now I just use Instagram as my open house.
Huh, that's an interesting tactic. I guess I haven't heard it thought of that way. So yeah, I think there's lots of different ways to build your business. And I think that, what's interesting too is like, some people, have built a huge business, but not off of social media at all. So, but you obviously have, and, but it works well for you. So I think that's interesting too, that, regardless of what agents choose to focus on, I think you kind of figure that out by doing a lot of what you talked about, which is being a sponge, right? When you're new and just learning, like you kind of almost fall into your niche and what you're good at, just almost accidentally. So like you kind of built it there, it was an organic thing that you just started posting, and then suddenly you started getting traction and building community around that. And then, one thing led to another.
What was your thing when you first started? Because mine was open houses. I crushed open houses.
Yeah. So I think for me, so part of what I like to do still today is I don't do a ton of it. I'd like to do more, but is investing in real estate. So I've done a handful of flips over the years, and
I know my buyer bought one.
I know. I love that.
That was awesome.
So yeah. That was a lot. Oh, that place was great too. Yeah, no, it was. So that's been kind of a lot of fun for me. And, my dad he's a real estate investor as well. He owns a bunch of properties and kind of rents them out. So that kind of maybe sparked some of that interest. And then, just the way you kind of figure it out, right? Like how can we make this make sense, both, for the market and what the numbers are and, the returns. So I think, having that be a part of it is always fun. I enjoy some of the process and the procedure of real estate too. So like, the building the systems and I'm a big reader, as you can see, right?
Yeah, you have to be.
So I think part of just that mindset of just being a sponge, like you said, right? And always learning and always growing. I think that's one of the things I love about this business is that every client is different. Every property is different. There's enough variety that just keeps it interesting.
No transaction is ever the same. I have not experienced the same thing twice.
Yeah.
And I would say for, new agents too, when you're trying to find that niche or whatever it is, you fail by doing, fail forward. But we always talk about what are the 4 ways you're prospecting. I'm not a huge, like, you got to be on the phone every day, blah, blah, blah. That's not, I say, get into your community. Yeah. So if you're on my team, I'm not someone who's like drill sergeant about calls. It's how are you impacting your community? Because if you're in your community and you're impacting them, you're building trust, and it might take longer, but it's more organic, than a cold call or something like that.
Sure.
So that's kind of our approach.
Yeah, I think that approach is good. I think that's an approach that's anyone who's successful in this business, that connection piece is like critical, I think.
Yeah.
And, I've done a lot just over the phone, and part of it is just the follow-up. I remember, and I think one of the best techniques I did years ago, and I still do it a lot even now, is like, I'll be looking at properties just that are available, and one that I think is a great deal. And I don't just call one potential client. I call a whole list of them. Like, hey, I saw this property. It looks like a great deal. Do you want to go check it out? Or do you know of somebody that might be interested? I think, I think part of that is if you can build your database, your follow-up plan, and how you stay in touch with people to, provide that value, then that's where the opportunity.
Yeah, I love that, because you're also the expert. You're saying, hey, I found this opportunity. Yeah. I read somewhere someone does like a deal of the week. Yeah. And they blast it out via email, but you're doing it by the phone, and that's great too. Like, this is what I love, is that like everyone just has their thing that can work, and there's no right or wrong way of doing it. And so I love that idea.
Yeah. Well, and I've done both, right? Like I might email it and give them a call. Hey, I just sent you this property. I thought it looked like a great deal. I don't know. Check it out. Let me know what you think, or if you know of somebody else. So I think taking action and really going after, to try to find and uncover that opportunity is what's gonna work.
Because that's really what our market is now.
Yeah.
It's about opportunity. Like, obviously you want the right house and you want a house you love, but sometimes winning is just taking advantage of an opportunity. And so with first time buyers, especially, it's like, just get on that first rung of the real estate ladder and take advantage of the opportunity of not competing or whatever it is. So yeah, I love that idea of sharing that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I don't know, we've talked about a variety of things. What, any topics coming to mind that you want to share, or otherwise
I would I don't know. I keep focusing on new agents. I don't know who your demographic is listening to this, but I think for a new agent, it's about staying flexible and knowing. I think like my biggest obstacle has been, we talked about it, no transaction is ever the same. And so you have to remain flexible. I wouldn't let your ego get in the way of anything. Like when we're talking to other agents, it's not about us, it's about the buyer and the seller. So keep your ego at bay. And I think that when I first started, I was very emotional. I took everything like offensively or offensively against me. And that's something that I would teach a new agent. It's like, it's not the end of the world. They're not attacking you. They're just trying to get to the end here. So now I'm calmer. I can approach it differently. I know it's not about me anymore. So.
No, I think that it can be definitely an emotional time for a lot of people. And, sometimes it's frustrating for sometimes things happen. I remember, I remember one transaction I had. It was an older house, and, nice house on the near west side of Madison, kind of over by West High, and, built in like the early 1900s. Okay. And, the buyers were thrilled with this place, and they, we wrote a pretty clean offer with very few contingencies and didn't ask for a ton of stuff on the inspection. And they ended up buying the house. Well, shortly after the sale, they had a plumbing issue, like in the basement, some plumbing leak or something had happened. And so I remember the buyer, he seemed really angry and frustrated, like that he didn't have a home warranty. And it was, he was mad at me almost that why didn't I have a home warranty? This house was built in the early 1900s. That's unacceptable, type of thing. And he was just, upset at the situation that he had this plumbing leak. But, that was a big aha for me and a big learning opportunity, in the sense that, okay, if I'm selling an older home, I should probably mention and bring up, hey, you might want to have a home warranty. It's not required, but it would be maybe advisable in this situation. So, some things that you learn along the way, but I think it was a way to something that seems obvious, right? Like I've heard of home warranties, and it just never came up as part of the negotiation, as part of the transaction. So I didn't bring it up and didn't think it was as important, because they were just so in love with this house and just didn't want to ask for too much from the seller, and the seller didn't offer it. But like from that next
procedural,
like
now you change your process.
Now we change our process. Exactly. How do we, in some ways, no transaction's the same, but in some ways there's a lot of similarities, and certain things are always going to come up. And how do we add value and make sure that we're giving the right advice based on the situation and helping people through that? So, I mean, you learn it over time, or you don't, but that was a big learning experience for me, I remember.
I love that example, because I think the way you become an expert is what you're foreshadowing. So it may not happen, because not everything's the same, but you're setting the expectations from the start. So when I talk about an inspection, I say, on average, people are only really getting X amount of money on a credit or something. They're not getting $20,000 price reductions. So I'm setting that expectation before we even go to an inspection. Then it's really, what are you comfortable with moving forward? You not, and just having a discussion, but knowing from experience what to expect, in that you're lining it up for them to. And I think it even starts with a buyer consult. You're setting the expectation all the way from the start, and they need to hear it about 5 times through the process. So
they forget, or they heard you talk about it before, but
there's too much for them to hear. So it's like, what are they absorbing? We do this every day. I explain that a lot to my team members. We think about real estate, we do real estate, we're all these things about real estate. Our clients are doing it once, maybe every 10 years. So try to give them the information in different ways, multiple times, so that they know what to expect.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think that it's all in the setup for sure. And just, meeting people where they're at and trying to foreshadow what we do know is going to be coming up more than likely, right? Or at least foreshadowing some of those expectations and setting expectations is super critical for important.
Yeah.
Definitely important. So
I think the last thing I would just end with is that, I'm doing social media now. I didn't do it before 2 years ago. It was never my thing. And so I think a lot of times agents come into real estate and they're like, I need a post on Instagram. And it's like, well, are you really getting business from that? Or are you just posting on Instagram? So again, if that's what you want your niche to be, do it. But if it's not your thing, don't feel like you have to do everything everyone's doing. If you're gonna do social media, then you have to be very consistent and use it as your prospecting. That is your 100% if you're going to do it. So I think that's the biggest takeaway from social media.
Well, I think, that's 100% true on any niche you have. I mean,
Correct.
We have an agent on our team that her niche is working with seniors. Guess how much Instagram they're on? None.
None. Yeah.
Okay. So it doesn't have to be Instagram. It can be something else. But I think you bring up a good point, right? Whatever your niche, whatever you decide you want your niche to be, is go deep on it and go deeper and go be able to consistent, right? If you want it to be investing or Instagram or seniors or lakefront or whatever, right? Like it's going to take more than just the occasional marketing message, right?
Right.
It's going to take a layered approach to how do you provide value and, show that you actually are the expert in this area. So
absolutely.
Definitely. Well, cool. Well, yeah, I really appreciate this conversation. I guess one last thing that's just coming to mind, it's a question that maybe I'd like to hear. And if something comes to mind for you, I'd love to hear more about it. But tell me about a time that maybe was challenging. I mean, I know you've had some major success and launched from 25 to 45 transactions and built your team and did whatever, but let's not paint it all as rose petals and, everything's perfect and rainbows and sunshine, right? Tell me about a challenging time in your career. What did you do to overcome that?
So a big challenge for me is that I'm a mom and I'm very present as a mom. And, those first couple of years, it was really hard to balance everything. Mm-hmm. And for 2 years, I did not balance everything. I'll just, but you have to make something a priority to focus on it. So I was still in my kid's life, but I missed a lot of Saturdays. I missed a lot of bedtimes. And I became really clear on what was important after my son had a really big accident. He cracked his entire forehead. And I was like, I don't really have to be on the phone at 8:00 every night. I don't have to miss bedtime. I can set a little bit of boundaries. And I was just in Florida this last weekend with my best friend. And she said, you know what I noticed about this trip? You're not on your phone the whole time. I was like, isn't that nice?
Hey, nice.
So I've noticed that I've just made myself a little bit more priority.
Yeah.
My business is really important to me and my people are really important to me. But if I don't take care of myself, I can't do this forever. And so I focused on my health last year. I've focused on my being present with my family. And I've done that by leveraging a little bit. So.
Yeah, totally. I've experienced a similar thing before. I mean, I remember I was in grad school going to back in 2010 to 2013, getting my master's in business.
You're aging yourself.
Well, I know I feel old. Okay. But tough time because I was still working full time, plus going to school. Plus we just had a newborn baby. That was hard on my wife big time. And it was challenging to just kind of keep it going. And so, I think that's part of where I'm at now is, and part of my desire too, to have a team is like, we all deserve a little bit of leverage, right? We deserve some time off. We deserve to have boundaries and take time for your family. And that's, I think, one of the benefits, I think, of having a little bit more of a team-based business.
Just it's challenging to be a parent and do this, whether you're a mother, a father, a single parent. Totally. It's really challenging. I think any job is hard, but this job can just add another layer because there's no boundaries on time. And there's no expectation of what you're doing in a weekend. So like, I can't even plan with my husband because I'm like, well, I don't know if I'll have showings. I don't know if I'll have
Right.
a problem with my listing. And so I love having a team, and I think my team likes being on a team because we can leverage. And if they take a vacation, they're not panicked. Someone else is covering them. And I promote vacation a lot because we all need time off.
We absolutely do. Well, and people deserve that, right? But at the end of the day, that client deserves, the service as well, right? Like that's part of the challenge. I think if you're just a solo agent, if you are gone, then there is more pressure to try to be there for them, or maybe work when you're on vacation, and versus, at least if you did have even a small team of a handful of people, then you can help, cover each other while you're out of town. So that definitely.
And we've all worked on vacation. I really hate the posts of people like, oh, working on, with their laptop on the beach. I'm like, why is that being like
celebrated?
Yeah, I'm like, that looks horrible. Why are we promoting that?
If I'm on the beach, I'm not working.
They're trying to show that they're working really hard. And I've been there, I've done it, but that's not a balanced life, so.
Yeah. No, I think
it's hard.
Setting expectations, boundaries, that's something that is hard to do. But I think, when you're brand new, maybe you don't need as many boundaries. But I think as you get ramped up, it's pretty easy to work 24/7 in this business. And I think, it will impact your health and your wellness and your relationships definitely get strained if you allow it. So that's something, that was a challenge I came across as well. So I totally agree.
I think every agent does. I think there can't be an agent who hasn't experienced that.
So. If they haven't, then they're not working hard enough. No.
Right. That's the point. I agree.
Right on. Well, cool. Well, Mari, I really appreciate you coming on the show. And
thanks for having me.
Yeah, sharing more of your insight and wisdom. And hope that our listeners got some nuggets out of our conversation and our dialogue today. So.
And I'm an open book. So if anyone's listening from Madison, I'm always happy to have coffee, share any experience, or just laugh together, share that. So I know I've enjoyed getting to work with you, and I hope we get to work again soon.
Absolutely. Let's have some more mutual clients. I like that idea. I like that too. Yeah, we had a great transaction, so that was good. So definitely happy to chat with more people that want to come on our show. And if there's follow-up, obviously we can do that too. So, but again, I appreciate you and just your insights. So
thanks for having me.
Yeah. All right. Well, you're listening to the Better Agent Podcast, and that's our show for today. Again, feel free to like, subscribe, or check it out next time if you found some value. And I hope everybody gets some better tips out of our Better Agent Podcast. So again, I'm your host, Josh Lavik, with Mari Slobounov today. Thanks for tuning in to the Better Agent Podcast. I hope you found today's insights valuable. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review if you enjoyed the show. Stay tuned for more tips, Q&A sessions, and sneak peeks into our 21-day challenge. To get full access of our show notes and more details on the 21-day challenge, go to abetterrealestateexperience.com. Keep striving for greatness, and I'll see you on the next episode.